How to make your story convert with our special guest, Monique Russell, a world-renowned communication expert here with us tonight, joins us to talk about storytelling as a professional, as a business owner, and in every area of your life. So we are going to talk about a lot tonight. Pretty much Monique and I, when we get together, we just talk. But it's going to be definitely going to center around storytelling and why it's important to tell your story and where to begin to identify your stories and how to be most impactful with your story. And before we get to all that, we're going to go into her lovely, amazing just accolades. Before we get into that, right? So Monique, you are world renowned in this subject. So clearly there must be a passion for it because all these companies are hiring you for it. Why communication, Monique? How did you get into this field?
So communication picked me. I started speaking at the age of 8 years old in front of live audiences, and I loved it. It was like everybody who was running away from the stage, I was that little girl that was running towards the stage. So I think when you have something when you're a young kid and you actually do good at it and you like it, you enjoy it, it's really a good sign that it's a strength and that you can go on ahead and start to develop it. Luckily for me, my mom, she saw that. She put me in a lot of programs, performing arts, national debates. And so I had a lot of practice. So it actually chose me. And over the years, this is what I ended up doing. So I love it so much. I come alive when I get to share, when I get to speak, when I get to help others to tell their story in a way for other people to connect with them too.
Love it. Fantastic. Fantastic. You saw how beautifully she communicated that, folks, too? Did you notice that? Did you see how she just ran off there? We didn't even prepare a question. Well, she didn't even know what question I was going to ask. With that being said, we have so much more to talk about with Monique here this evening on tonight's show of Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. I know some of you are likely new watching this. So first, we're going to do a little mini intro. Welcome. You're listening to Entrepreneurship is a Marathon with yours truly, Vanessa Zammy. We are here live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I am known as a Business Defibrillator. My clients call me that because I help bring life back to them and their business. Specifically, I consult micro businesses and entrepreneurs on how to revive, how to grow, and how to scale their purpose-driven business without burnout, sleep deprivation, or overwhelm. And as always, in every episode of Entrepreneurship is a Marathon, we ask the question and we explore the question and we take a moment here to acknowledge what has been your win of the week. What has been your win of the last 7 to 9 days? Maybe you're listening to this on a Sunday or a Monday or at the end of the week on a Saturday, right? But what has been your win of the last 7 days? And so I like to start off with my guest, Monique. What has been your win of the week?
Oh, goodness. So lots of wins. I don't even know which one to share. So there's been an organization, a government organization that I've been courting for a number of years.
Ooh.
And so the win of this week, out of the blue, air quotes, out of the blue.
Yeah.
They
Luck.
contacted me. They contacted me. And so now we are in a relationship.
Oh,
So
great.
it definitely pays off to plant seeds, to stay followed up, to stay connected. And so that's a huge win for me. Because like I said, it came out of the blue, meaning I had already put it to the back burner, put it to the side. And sometimes those seeds that you plant, they spring up when you least expect it. So I think that's fitting because your show is Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. And that's exactly it. We have to keep planting seeds. So I'm happy about that.
Love it, love it, love it. And I mean, there's so many things in what you just said there. I mean, yes, right. And so that whole follow-up process, that whole, staying in the journey, still sure it was, yes, Monique did mention that she kept it in the back burner, but right, she still probably touched points with them every now and again, stay top of mind, ensure that they were aware of her story so that they, kept on with the updates, right? And then eventually, when the time came, she was then, contacted, right? And something else that you mentioned, Monique, where you said, the things, they come when you least expect it. And yes, they come when you least expect it, but they come when they're supposed to come. Right? Everything happens for a reason. Everything works in each of our favors. Yes. Love it, love it, love it. And so this is so great. Okay. With that being said, what has been my win of the week? Let me share. So my win of the week, I'm going to share about a client of mine who she had a breakthrough. So that's my win of the week. I just love when clients experience breakthroughs. One of those breakthroughs breakthroughs that were like tears on the call and like, oh, I'm fixed. So one of those aha moments for her, and just being a part of that experience and helping her to see that light for her business and for her life, and to just take her through that next transition, right? For those who have been in entrepreneurship for a while, you know that yes, it is a business development journey, right? But it is also a personal development journey as well too, right? 20% strategy, 80% mindset. And so we went to that mindset piece that like, really for her as well. For those who are listening on the podcast, I did a little thing with my head there. But with that being said, remember to type in the comments what has been your win of the week. So if you're watching on YouTube, scroll down below, hit the subscribe button, and then scroll down even more, and then type in the comments what has been your win of the week, even if you're watching a replay. If you're listening on LinkedIn or on Facebook in the Facebook group, Skyrocket Your Business with Vanessa Zammy, feel free to also type in the comments, leave a little reaction, and then type in the comments what has been your win of the week, right? Take the time to celebrate. Let us celebrate with you. What is something that you recently accomplished, right? It could be personal, it could be business, but what has been your win of the week that you would like to celebrate, right? That you like to share, right? But maybe you haven't shared it with anyone else because you were like, who else do I share it with? You can share it here. This is your space. With that being said, we're going to go into our episode here, How to Make Your Story Convert, with our world-renowned guest, Monique Russell. Yes, I'm going to read her bio, though, for those who may not know who she is, right? So Monique Russell is teaching women leaders and teams how to have positive and productive relationships at home and work using effective communication tools and strategies. World-class organizations, including Amazon, Microsoft, Google, the Centers for Disease Control, Verizon, Intel, Equifax, and the world's busiest airport, Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International. These organizations trust Monique to guide them in implementing communication strategies that foster connection, community, creativity, and courage. You can too. Monique has 20 years of experience in the science of communication and leads Clear Communication Solutions, an international training, coaching, and consulting firm that focuses on confidently communicating from the inside out. So many C's in this. Love it. She is the author of The Ultimate Speaker's Guide and the book Intentional Motherhood, Who Said It Would Be Easy, and the host of the Bridge to You podcast. Love it. Thank you for joining us here. Yes. Great. So here's the thing, Monique. You work with a lot of executive leaders, VPs, directors, C-suite, all the things, right? Why is it important to tell your story?
Well, how are you going to differentiate yourself? There's so many people in different industries, in different roles, and at a certain level, everyone in the room is smart. Everyone in the room is intelligent. Everyone has credentials. Everyone has academic backgrounds. So the only thing that separates you from everybody else is your story. The only thing that makes you memorable is your story. So if you don't know what your story is, you don't know how to tell it, you don't know what part will resonate with your audience, or you're not comfortable with it, you're just giving yourself a disadvantage every single day of the week. Maybe you might want to pursue a higher role in your organization, or you want to attract a certain set of clients. If you're not aware of your story or how to tell your story, then you're missing out on opportunities to expand and connect.
I love it. I love it. And it's one of those things where, you say yourself, right? Connection, community, creativity, and courage, right? And the communication adding and leading to that. So curious, how did you identify your story? You mentioned that, yes, you've been speaking and communicating since the age of 8 in a public arena, but how did you identify your story, and how do you suggest others do it? Like, where do they begin to identify their story?
So the thing is, we have multiple stories, and I know that in our speaking world, in our business, a lot of times what is suggested or recommended is that you create your signature speech. You create that one single story, and you beat that story into the ground. Well, it's 2022, and I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of hearing the same old stories that people have regurgitated 10, 20 years ago. So you have a whole bunch of stories in your arsenal from your life experiences, things that you've learned, things that you didn't learn, things that you're still curious about. And so what you want to do is take an inventory of your life. Take an inventory of your lessons that you've learned, things that you've gained, things that you would never want anyone to experience in their life because you've gone through it, and start to sift through and create a catalog for yourself of experiences from which you can speak on confidently. And that's what I would recommend and suggest for people when they're looking to tell their story. For me, I have many, many, many pieces of my story. And for example, I'm a mother. I have two boys, 21 and 15. But it wasn't until about 2 years ago, that I actually brought that part of my brand into my public facing story. Most of my story was focused on my presentation skills, my communication skills, the things that I've learned, the people that I've helped, the successes my clients have experienced, who I'm working with, things like that. But 2 years ago, I brought that piece of motherhood into my public facing story. I would continue to help people behind the scenes and coaching them around these topics, but I would bring them in to learn more about my view on motherhood, how they could make their home life more effective, and how they could take those transferable skills from work and then bring them over into their parenting. So this motherhood piece of my story is something that has just, found its way into my branding communication, and it's allowed me to connect with a wider audience, make me a little bit more relatable in that aspect. And that's really what you want to go for when you're looking at sharing your story with the world.
I love that. Beautifully, beautifully said. And something you mentioned, so you said that it only came into your story 2 years ago. So why then?
Yeah,
What
so
was the, yes.
because times change. So I've always shared about my experiences being a mom, but I just never used it on a platform. So, for example, I actually wrote a book about it. I decided that, I wanted to write a legacy. Part of what I went through in some new areas of self discovery, I found myself answering similar questions to people one on one, privately, in my family and in my friends' network and in my coaching clients. And I said, if I had a great, great, great granddaughter, grandson, family member, I would want them to know my views on motherhood, which are unconventional, which aren't the norm. And so I wrote the book and I put it together. It became a part of my speaking topic list. I'm actually speaking on this topic on Thursday this week. And so this is something that I just added because it's relevant for where we are right now. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people fail to miss is the relevancy of their story. Not every part of your story is relevant for your audience. So you have to determine which parts are relevant, when is it relevant, how is it relevant, what do you want them to do after you share that? What do you want them to feel or experience? So yeah, definitely I added the motherhood. And as we can see in our topics today, motherhood and the women in the workforce and the issues with women leaving the workforce and taking innovation with them is a huge problem.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And before we get into a little bit deeper around that, so where can people find your book?
You can find my book on Amazon,
Okay.
Intentional Motherhood, Who Said It Would Be Easy. You can also find it on my website, MoniqueRussell.com.
Okay.
And make sure
All
you
right.
grab a copy.
I'm getting the link right now, so we can put that in the comments. So for those who are watching on YouTube, the links will be in the description. So if you scroll down below, for those looking to the podcast, it should be in the listen notes. Yes. But with that being said, love it. So it is something you mentioned important was sort of there's something you mentioned earlier about how, we all have stories to tell, right? And we all, there are people who tell the same stories for like 20 years, but that they're living life for those last 20 years. So chances are there's some stories that are being created in those 20 years, right?
And it's not that the old story is bad, it's good. It's just tired.
Indeed. So you want to ensure that you stay relevant, right? But also ensuring that, and of course, as speakers, we say the same story over and over again. You probably want to keep it, jazz it up a bit in your life, jazz up the profession. And so I love it. Definitely as a speaker, I found myself being more mindful of stories. Sometimes there are things I forget, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, that did happen. That might be relevant for that thing. Oh, that's our jotting it down just to ensure I remember. But yes. So there's time and a place and a space for your story, whatever story it may be. And so I'm curious in terms of what would you say, right? So this one mistake you mentioned was people using the same title story for many years. What are some other common mistakes that people do when it comes to either sharing their story, telling their story, anything in between?
So another mistake is just not using their own story. I see a lot of people who aren't comfortable with sharing their story. They will talk about somebody else's story and use that, or they'll use someone else's quotes and form their messaging around that. And while it's good to be inspired, it's not effective if you're brand building to be acquired. If I want to go and watch that person that you're quoting or that story, I'll go and watch them, but I came to watch you. So when you do that and you consistently do that, you're communicating to the audience that you're not comfortable in sharing who you are. You're not comfortable in taking a stand or making a position. And so that kind of waters down your brand because now you become vanilla like everybody else. And who really wants to hear that? People want to hear your unique story. They want to hear your unique position. What are your thoughts on this? So if you're not comfortable with that, you want to go ahead and look at coaching to see maybe why are you afraid of your story? What about your story feels uncomfortable or embarrassing? Our stories are not for us. They're for us to share so that other people can feel inspired, they can take action, they can have a better experience in their own lives. So I'd say not sharing their story is one mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, using the same one over and over again. If I come to your event 3 times and you're telling me the same story, then what's going to make me follow you? And I love watching you. I love listening to you. What's going to make me come to the fourth event if I already know what you're going to talk about? So making sure that you pay attention to trends, pay attention to relevancy, maybe pay attention to the portions of your story that you're choosing to share. The third part I would say, or the third mistake I would say, is telling too much, telling parts that are irrelevant, parts that aren't useful.
Mm.
So this is a skill. You want to make sure that you're only taking out the essentials, because attention spans today, people just don't have attention. We have email filters, we have spam blockers, we have do not call, do not disturb lists. We can take our social media apps off our phone, silence notifications, and so attention is a currency. It's something that if people grant you with their time, you want to make sure that it's useful. So don't just tell your whole story and you're making your audience have to think through, okay, which piece, which nugget, which what. You're just rambling. You didn't put any intentionality or any thought or any structure behind what that message is that you're delivering. And so you're actually sabotaging your own brand. So that's the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people make.
Those were some powerful mistakes. And I see those a lot as well, but and then I'm thinking through. I also was in debate. And so I like to say, what else? What would the opposite person say? So what do you say to that person who says, but Monique, that person had that book is so well known. That quote is so well known. Like, what do you mean? Are you telling me not to use it? Like, shouldn't I be using and showing my knowledge and expertise and awareness of this popular thing?
So, yes, you should. And I'm not saying you shouldn't use people's quotes entirely. I'm just saying that you have to be intentional about how you use it. Um, we hear these famous quotes all the time. Start with why. Um, I can't even think of the other ones right now, but we hear a lot of people use different quotes, and we know that those quotes are not their own. So even if you use someone's quote, for example, then add your own commentary to it. Why do you like it? Why is it important to you? Why is it of interest to you? Why do you disagree? Why do you agree? To simply say, according to Vanessa Zemi, this is what she said. Well, that's great when you're talking about research and statistics and things that require some sort of analytical evidence. But when it comes to storytelling, the best person to discuss and describe and talk about what it is that you do and have experienced is you. You can certainly supplement and pepper your speech with some motivational and inspirational quotes. But where we are in 2022, I don't know about you, but a lot of organizers, a lot of members in the audience, they're no longer interested in those inspirational, motivational talks for the entire time of your speech. They want practical takeaways. They want things that's going to help them make their lives better, things that they can't find on YouTube. I love YouTube. I can get a lot of inspiration and motivation for free. So, again, if someone's going to give you the gift of their time, you really want to take intention to make it more worthwhile for them. This is my opinion and my belief.
I love it. And you have a good point there. And it's something, it reminds me of something that you mentioned a little bit earlier as well about, there are people who are, well, as speakers, assuming you have fans, right? They're probably coming to see you a couple of times, and at this point in time, it's something that I definitely noticed a few years ago where there was there's that motivational speaking, but now sort of people want workshops. They want takeaways. They want, they want to take action. They may not actually take the action. That's a whole another conversation, another episode. But they want to think that they can take action and want those takeaways, right? And they want those to-dos and things for them to actually do with their life, right? So love it. Love it. Fantastic. So with that being said, Monique, what is one thing, actually, before we get to that, what's that? What tips do you have to help people with the conversion part, right? How to make their stories convert. So for example, you now you have the eyes and ears, your relationship with this government contractor, right? What is the process that you're going to take to convert, so to speak?
Well, I've already converted, so
you already converted.
Well, it ain't no process. My process was staying in touch and staying top of mind and having relevant topics and updating topics, not topics that I submitted in the past, updating relevant topics and showing them how I have maintained that relevancy with my expertise. But when you're talking to somebody new, and you want to determine what emotion you want to evoke. People take action when they're driven by emotion. A lot of times we think that we're just logical thinkers and we're just making our decisions completely off of logic, but we know how the brain is set up. That prefrontal cortex is here. So that decision goes straight right to that immediate part before it gets to the back of the brain where it's actually rational thinking, and we justify those emotional decisions with our rational thinking. It's, if you've ever think about a situation where you have an impulse and you just react immediately and then you're like, no, okay, let me stop, let me think about that. It's because we're designed that way to just instinctively respond. So when we're talking about our story and we're talking about conversion, you have to make sure that it is something that people can connect with. How is it relatable to them? How can they make a difference in their life? You can't make this thing so big and so grandiose because now they can't see themselves in that picture. They can't see themselves in the experience that you've painted for them to help them have more success in their life or in their relationships. And that's really the bottom line. That's where the story comes in. The story is to educate, it's to inform, it's to inspire. And if we can't connect with some aspect of that, and also if we don't have messaging around what we want them to do, then it's never going to convert. So you can talk about it all day long. You can feel good. I know a lot of speakers who speak and it is exceptional and absolutely nothing happens. There's no interest, no inquiry, no follow-up, no, can I get on a call with you? Do you have some services, some products, or whatever? And it's because they haven't infused that action step inside of their storytelling. So now we're getting into that business side, right? So the story must be important and connect to their pain point, connect to their need at the moment. And then we talk about that business part, that sales part. What do we do next? How do we answer the question, okay, so what's next? What's next? So we have to answer that question. And I think that is where it seems simple, but there's a lot of gaps there that I've seen with
Yeah.
speakers. So
Indeed, indeed. We only have a couple minutes left, so we're just gonna wrap it up. But what would you say? What is your one key next step action takeaway that you would give to someone who is, they're existing business owner, maybe a micro business, maybe they're a local business owner, and they are, trying to, maybe they're trying to enter the speaking world. Maybe they do vendoring or whatever it may be, right? There are many different ways for you to share your story. But let's say they're on social media. What is sort of one thing one key takeaway, the next action item you encourage that person to do?
you mean if that person is trying to get into the speaking space, for them to give their audience?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean let me try to be general, but it depends. It depends on who their audience is and what they're offering, right? So, but let me try to be general here. Let me think. So, if if they are on social media, they're a small business and they want someone to move to that next step, it could be that they simply invite them to do, let's just make up and say they do a business audit.
Mm-hmm.
If they offer services that can help their client improve their operational excellence or efficiency, they can provide a free audit. If it's a business that maybe they're providing SEO services, they can do a review and give that person where all their gaps are. Contact us for the next gap analysis or something of that sort. But it depends on what it is that they're offering. It depends on who it is that they're speaking to, and more than likely how they will go ahead and take that next step. Sometimes you just want them to call or text. Some people might prefer that. So, yeah, but the key is just having that and making sure that it's relevant. If you have an audience and you want them to go and sign up for a webinar, that might not be a proper next step unless you're talking to, let's say, higher education administration professionals and you're telling them for a 30-minute webinar how to get more students into their college campuses. I mean, it depends on what it is that you're offering or who you're offering it to. So, yeah.
And that was a takeaway in and of itself. It's one of those, there's no cookie cutter way, right? But I think the main thing that you're saying here, Monique, is that you need to stay relevant, right? And staying relevant. What is relevant, right? Someone say, what is relevant? That relevant is in respect to whatever your industry is, your audience. Relevant is in respect to today versus tomorrow, and so just being mindful of that and ensuring that you are being relevant so you can stay top of mind for your audience as you share the story of the many lists of stories that you probably have in your life that you can share to really inspire, inform, as Monique shared here today. So thank you, Monique. Appreciate it. How can people get in touch with you? Next up, etc.
Yes, you can always hit me up on LinkedIn, Monique Russell, Clear Communication Coach. You can visit the website, moniquerussell.com or clearcommunicationsolutions.com. You can always call the office line, 706-963-0322. Again, 706-963-0322.
I wish I captured that for the banner. But great, awesome. I think I semi remembered that, but okay. With that being said, love it. Thank you, Monique, for that. I put her, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see her link in the comments as well as in the description. If you're watching on LinkedIn, click on her tag there, and feel free to follow Monique and connect with her on LinkedIn for even more communication expertise, or just reach out to her if you're looking to get your story solidified and be the best leader you can be, not only for your business, but let's say you're watching as a professional as well too. So thank you, Monique, for joining us here this evening on Entrepreneurship Is a Marathon. It's a pleasure having you here with us this evening. And for those of you watching, join us next Tuesday for another episode live of Entrepreneurship Is a Marathon on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. But with that being said, have a lovely evening, folks. And remember to stay relevant. Chat soon.